Saw a debate last night where Donald Trump did plow through many falsehoods, a lot of them going undetected, not rebutted by President Biden. President Biden came across as someone who was incoherent, who couldn't finish his sentence, and that went on for 90 minutes. So what do you think this is signaling to both our friends and enemies abroad?
Well, and I'm glad you brought up that point because while Biden clearly lost the debate, I'm not sure that Trump won the debate. I think Biden lost the debate. And I think the American people lost overall, given that these are our options at this particular stage. There were no heroes last night. But if you are a world leader, and I was saying this last night to friends while we were watching the debate, like if you are a world leader who wants to go after America, I would be looking and be like, now's our chance. Let's take our shot, because it doesn't appear that anybody at the top is home. And that is a scary, scary thing internationally. So I think that that's another consideration Americans are going to, have to grapple with as they make the decision. And again, I'm going to go back to the anger I think that Democrats are feeling, that they were lied to by people very high up in the White House, by senators, by cabinet members, all because those people wanted to retain their own power and their proximity to power. And what are the repercussions as a result of this? Losing an election is one thing. Opening ourselves up on the world stage to potential threats is another.
The anger is palpable in that respect. And this was already an election that there were going to be fears of low voter turnout. Do you think that if Biden is the nominee, there is this feeling of anger, not enthusiasm surrounding him? Do you think this is going to impact House and Senate races too?
It could. I mean, look, you always see a trickle down effect. And if you see Democratic voters, traditional Democratic voters stay home, then I think the odds of us picking up the House drop dramatically. And the Senate, because of the calendar year that we're in, not every Senate seat is up every 2 years because it's a 6-year term. We already weren't favored to hold the Senate. So I think that the Senate is probably gone. And I think that if you've got traditional Democratic voters who are not enthused to sit home, you are going to see a down ballot impact that's going to cost us the House again.
And aside from how they were saying it, let's talk a little bit about what was said last night. Do you think either Trump or Biden laid out a really good, cohesive plan, a vision for how they're going to run the country should either of them win a second term?
No, I mean, that was the worst part. There was a moment at the end that was almost comical where they were arguing over golf and, Trump turns to Biden and says, let's not act like children, Joe. And I'm like, this is, these are our options. And so, I mean, to the extent that they engaged in any conversation, it was mostly about things in the past and it was bickering. And I really didn't hear a vision from either of them. But the truth of the matter is, given the split screen and given how Biden looked, I don't even think people could have focused on the dialogue because everyone was so struck by the image. And, someone told me once, you can tell if someone's good on TV if you mute the television and how they look and how they come off. And last night it's almost like the sound didn't matter.
So what are you looking for next when it comes to the DNC's in less than 8 weeks, the RNC's a little sooner? What are you looking for between now and then, and looking out, the debate in September?
Well, again, I'm not even sure there's going to be a debate in September. But if there is a debate, if Joe Biden is lucky enough, if Joe Biden is still on the ticket in September and Joe Biden is lucky enough to get another shot, then he is going to have to be the Joe Biden that we saw at the State of the Union and not the Joe Biden that we saw last night. And between now and then, this is not something that can be accomplished through surrogates. This is not something that can be accomplished through ads. It's going to have to be him out taking questions on the trail. And we're going to have to cross our fingers and say a prayer that Trump does what Trump does, goes out, says things that are alienating, that are crazy, that make him come off unhinged, that remind people that it wasn't, as much as we tell ourselves we were better off 4 years ago, putting COVID aside, than we are today. And you see that reflected in all the polls when you get asked that question, that it was unsettling to have a president who was, tweeting at dictators, and that it was unsettling to have a president who was such a loose cannon, and that there is some good in predictability and stability. And so I think that we're going to need to see both of those two things happen.
And as a Democrat, let's say Biden is off the ticket, who would you want to see as the nominee?
I can't even engage in that like fantasy football. The problem is The Democratic Party is a big tent party, and Kamala Harris being vice president sort of puts everybody in a little bit of a box. Because if you pass her over, and she would be the heir apparent, if you pass her over, you could see a real rift within the party. And if Black women or women in general sit home, they are the backbone of the Democratic Party, then you are going to ensure a loss. And so, again, I think that this would have to be some sort of move by the party elders who get behind somebody who can, we know can win, who will go in and say, I'll just serve one term. But, listening to people banty about Gretchen Whitmer and Gavin Newsom, these people, it's like, okay, well, if it's Gavin Newsom, do we want to have a referendum on San Francisco and the current state of what's going on in San Francisco on the national stage and make that the face of the Democratic Party? Like, these things haven't been thought through. And they're so complicated, and we're so late in the calendar. And so, look, I would love it if Barack Obama could run again. He can't. I don't know what the answer is, but hopefully between now and the next few weeks, unless Joe Biden goes out and proves that last night was an aberration, we're going to need an answer.